Hi, my name is Drew, and you're watching Ready Budget Go. If we haven't met before, welcome. I'm glad you found me. If this isn't your first time here, welcome back. It's good to see you again. This series is called My Money Relaunch, where I talk about all the things I learned and actions I took to better manage my money once I became debt free. Before we get started with this week's topic, there are a couple things I want to mention. First and foremost, I am not a financial advisor. This series is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Before taking any action with your money, do your own research and seek your own counsel. Second, I will be doing my Paint by Sticker Savings Challenge while I talk. With this challenge, I save $2 per sticker to put toward my big goals. And now, with all that out of the way, let's get started. This week we're talking about taxes, and taxes is part 2 of the 6-part Strive method, which I developed after I became debt-free to better manage my money. If you're new to this series, I've been talking about taking courses at UCLA in personal financial management because after I became debt-free, I realized I didn't know what I was doing with my money, and I was terrified I was going to end up right back in debt again. So I thought I better get my act together, and I started reading everything I could, and I enrolled in some classes. Now, I did not complete that program, and the reason I didn't complete it, well, there were 2 reasons. One reason was because I knew I wasn't headed for a career in personal financial planning. That is what those courses are geared toward, or people who want that for their career or who already are in the field and are looking to get their certification. So I knew that wasn't me. And the other reason is because some of the courses were very time dependent, and one of those being a course on income tax. So I did not take the income tax course. We covered a little bit of it in the survey portion, but I didn't complete that course. And the reason I didn't complete that course, again, is because it's a moment in time, right? So you take that course, you learn everything you can about income tax, and then a new administration blows in and they upend the tax code, and the next year your taxes are different. I was taking these courses at UCLA in 2017, 2018. So we were into the first term of President Trump, and tax codes were already changing, and it was a different kind of administration. So I thought, well, if I take this class, how long is this information going to be useful to me? So I thought, you know what? I'm just not going to take this one. And I don't regret not taking it because the tax code that we had in 2017, completely different from the tax code we have today. Good, bad, or indifferent doesn't matter. The point is that it is not the same tax code as we had before. So, why do I still want to talk about taxes? And there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason is because taxes is not just your income tax. So it is many different kinds of taxes. And the second reason is because taxes are in our everyday life, and they are so much more pervasive than I think we allow ourselves to realize. And this part of the Strive method, again, S stands for saving and spending, T is for taxes, R is for retirement, I is for insurance, V is for investments, and E is for estate planning, so Strive. The taxes portion really got me thinking about how much am I spending and how does this intersect with all these other areas. So there is a tax strategy where you dump as much money as you can into your 401k because you're deferring your income tax. There is, not spending on certain things, so you don't have to spend the taxes associated with it. And I'll go into that in more detail later. But I want to frame the conversation around taxes with a quote from a very famous judge. If you don't follow law or legal news and things like that, you may not have heard of this person, but his name is Judge Learned Hand. And he was a very famous judge. He is still highly quoted today. In fact, I think he's probably one of the most frequently quoted judges in American jurisprudence. And he served for a time as a district judge in the Southern District of New York. And if you have ever seen the TV show Billions, or if you know a bit about our American legal system, the Southern District of New York tends to get a lot of cases that involve money and finance because the Southern District of New York is essentially the island of Manhattan. It might be Staten Island too, but it is a small district geographically speaking, but it is also one of the most important, if not the most important, districts in the legal system, in the Department of Justice. And it is highly concentrated in Manhattan. You go across the bridge to Brooklyn and you're in the Eastern District. Totally different. So they get tax cases, they get cases on securities and bonds and investments and all of this stuff. So the quote that I want to share says, "Any one may so arrange his affairs that his taxes shall be as low as possible. He is not bound to choose the pattern which will best pay the Treasury. There is not even a patriotic duty to increase one's taxes." And the context of this quote is it was part of a case that Judge Hand heard where the government was suing someone for tax evasion. And Judge Hand is drawing a delineation between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance, in Judge Hand's view, is where you arrange your money, you arrange your affairs, you arrange your accounts to avoid incurring a tax. Tax evasion, on the other hand, is where you legitimately owe a tax, whatever it is, and you don't pay it. So two totally different things. And the government was suing someone for essentially moving his money around so that he didn't have to pay some kind of tax. And Judge Hand said there's nothing wrong with that. It is not the taxpayer's obligation to put their money into such an arrangement that the government gets to take the largest chunk of it. So that quote was printed in a textbook that I read as part of my coursework in the personal financial planning program, and it was in the survey level course, and it really got me thinking, because it's not just about income tax, it is about every tax. So like I was saying earlier, I think if you bring up the word taxes, most people are probably thinking about their federal income tax. And what is your tax burden? Oh, I'm in the 22% bracket or the 24% bracket or the 32% bracket or 18 or whatever it is. But really, our tax burden is so much more than that. Not just in the other taxes that we know that we pay. You know, you get your paycheck and you have Social Security taken out, you have Medicare taken out, you have potentially state and local taxes taken out, payroll taxes taken out. And it's not just the taxes that you pay at the cash register, right? Sales tax, excise taxes. Taxes are just about in every dollar we spend. There are very few things that we buy that are tax-free. In most states, you are not taxed on food at the supermarket. In the state where I live, most groceries are tax exempt, with exceptions. Beverages tends to be kind of a murky area. Milk is tax exempt because it's classified as a food, but bottled water is not tax exempt because I don't know why. As well as, sugary sodas and everything else. And in some places, those sugary sodas have a surtax on them. So, you get a can of Diet Coke and it's, maybe $1.50, but you get a can of regular Coke and it's, $1 more. So there's those kinds of taxes. And then there's the hidden taxes. There's the taxes that we don't really even think about. There are, there's the gasoline tax, which is totally invisible to us because it's just baked into the cake when you fill up at the pump. Now, I don't drive, so I don't pay any gasoline tax. But the point is, that's a significant amount of money in some states. I don't know what it is in the state of Washington because, again, I don't drive, but it's high. It's high in Washington, it's high in Oregon, it's high in California. Generally, any high cost of living state, the gas tax is generally high. Then you also have your liquor taxes, and that's not just on spirits, that's also on beer and wine and, anything like that. Tobacco is another popular thing to tax the living heck out of. If your state allows cannabis, that is also heavily taxed usually. The state where I live, our liquor tax is 37%, and that is on distilled spirits. It's 37%, and it's the same on cannabis. It is by far the highest in the country. I don't partake, but those who do pay a lot of tax. Hotels charge tax. And well, it's not the hotel charging the tax, it's the jurisdiction, right? And if you go to a very touristy place, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, I think, has it. Some other jurisdictions, Orlando probably has it. You pay tourism taxes because you're in the high tourist district and they know they can get you. San Francisco is by far the worst that I have ever paid, but it's kind of everywhere that gets a lot of tourist traffic. You buy an airline ticket, you're paying taxes. Your cell phone bill, you're paying all kinds of taxes. Most of them are very small, but they're in there. Property taxes, whether you are a homeowner or you are a renter, either way, you're paying. Capital gains taxes, and the list goes on and on and on. So the point is, when you're thinking about your total tax burden, don't just think about your income tax. Think about all the other taxes you have to pay. And also remember that almost every dollar is double taxed because you paid taxes when you earned it and you paid another tax most of the time when you spent it. So unless you're buying food at the grocery store or, you're giving to charity or doing some other, contribution or buying a necessity, you're paying taxes. So when I was reading the chapters on taxes in my survey level course, I thought, okay, I don't want to be giving a whole bunch of extra money to the government. So what do I need to do to keep my tax burden down? And I already don't drive, right? So I'm not paying those taxes. And it's not just the gas tax. I'm also not paying for car tabs. I'm not paying registration fees. I'm not paying for any of those other taxes that the government likes to collect on motorists. But over the years, I have found a lot of other loopholes. And loopholes is kind of a dirty word, but other ways of avoiding paying tax. So I don't pay for hotels anymore. I do if I'm going on business travel and my company is paying for it, but that's different. They're paying the tax. For me, I don't pay taxes on hotels because I redeem credit card rewards. And because it drives the price of the room to zero, there's nothing for the state to tax wherever I'm going. So that is one way that I avoid a tax. When it comes to airline reservations, sometimes if you redeem miles, the airline will cover the taxes for you because they like being able to have a $0 ticket, I think. But other times you have to pay taxes. It depends too on where you're going and what airport and this, that, and the other thing. So I don't always get out of those taxes. But the point is that in some cases, being able to redeem miles or points or what have you can get you out of not just paying for whatever it is, paying cash for whatever it is you want to buy, but you also get to skip out on the tax because there's none to collect. There's none for the state to collect. So that's one thing. And then also just reducing the taxes that I pay. So I quit smoking in 2016. July of 2016, I quit smoking. Cold turkey. Just had enough of it, decided I wasn't going to smoke anymore. I cannot tell you how much money I have saved on tobacco taxes because in this state it's over $3 a pack. And if I'm smoking 3 packs a week, $9 a week, 52 weeks in a year, that's $450 just in 1 year. That is a significant amount of money. I mean, that is what expense can I relate that to? I mean, food for most people for an entire month. Getting that money back into your budget just by not smoking. So if you've watched my budget videos, you'll see that my list of bills is fairly small and I keep my expenses fairly simple. And part of that is because of my aversion to paying taxes. It's not that I am morally opposed to taxes, it's just that I don't want to pay more than I have to. So I'm doing what I can to keep those bills to a minimum. Now, obviously, not everyone can live the kind of lifestyle that I do. It's not for everyone. And that isn't the point. The point isn't do as I do. The point is just to think about all of the hidden taxes that you pay and consider whether it's worth paying them, because in some cases it absolutely is. When I need new clothes, my state charges sales tax on clothes. I'm kind of stuck. you know the alternative of walking around naked just isn't viable, so I have to pay the sales tax on the clothes. um, Other states don't collect sales tax on clothes. I mean, it's a coat of many colors that we have here in the US. So I'm at least cognizant, though, of what taxes I'm paying and to whom and when. Because once you start really looking at all of your expenses and just thinking about how much you paid in taxes in those, it's a whack of tax. My total tax burden to the federal government is somewhere around 30-ish%. It's in the high 20s, low 30s, somewhere around there. But when you add in 10% sales tax in the state of Washington, when you add in the payroll taxes, when you add in all of the other taxes that are flung at us, it inches up your total tax burden. And then I think for every dollar that I earn, how much work that dollar has to do to be mine, paying taxes on it coming and going. So again, not a prescription here, just something to think about and something to think, how much of your money do you want the government to have? In some cases, like I say, it's totally worth it. In other cases, not. So I know that wasn't a very specific topic to talk about today, but at the same time, it was very foundational for me in going through the coursework that I went through in the personal financial planning program to sort of shape how I thought about money going forward. Because I already was terrified of going into debt again, because I just dug myself out of the hole for the second time. And thinking about my total tax burden, thinking about how much of my money was going back to the government, helped me to focus on my spending and my saving. So I put more money into my 401k because that was less money the government was going to tax, for income tax anyway. I was still going to have to pay other taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and the like. And it also forced me to think about my spending. And do I really want to spend, money on some miscellaneous thing and give 10% of the purchase price to the government? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I thought about it, and those sometimes no's, the money that I saved up from doing that is a nice chunk of change. I have a fully funded emergency fund. I have a fully funded Roth IRA. I'm putting money into my brokerage account, and that is growing. I'm putting money aside in my 401k, and that is growing. And so it helps with the money philosophy. So that is it for this week. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, if you chose to watch me struggle with the stickers. And I will be back next week where we're going to talk about retirement. And until I see you in the next one, take care.